Well, hey, thank you for tuning in, and I am so excited to share this journey with you. Obviously, this would not be happening without you watching it, so I greatly appreciate that. So I just want to say that I am not a professional by any means, so I'm going to be stumbling on my words a little bit, as I'm doing now. I'm going to be putting my foot in my mouth several times, as you'll see. So I promise to get better, but if you know me personally, then you know that this is pretty much standard. So I promise you I'm going to get better at this. But without further ado, I hope you really enjoy the show. So here we go. Welcome to the very first episode of the LunkerChasers podcast. My name's Sandon Wilson. I'm going to be your host. Today, I have the very best person that I could think of to start off this podcast with. He is the executive director for Visit Anderson, Mr. Neil Paul.
Well, thank you, Sandon, and thank you for the opportunity to do this. What I can tell you is, one, congratulations on getting this started, because I know this is a labor of love, and I know it's something that you've been working on now for several years. But if you started with me, then there's no place to go here but up.
Oh, no.
It'll get a lot better. It'll get a lot better after this. But no, thank you for the opportunity to do this and coming to be a part of this. And I'm looking forward to this today, but I'm also looking forward to watching you take it and grow it. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, I certainly do appreciate that. But I know everybody here wants to know why Neil Paul, why bring him, who is Neil Paul? Neil Paul is probably one of my best friends. He has been part of the fishing community for, I know, at least the last 13 years or so. Would that be about right?
Probably 10, 12, yeah.
I first met Neil Paul. We were at the 2014 Forest Wood Cup in Columbia. Mr. Neil won the boat, and I offered to give him my trailer hitch. I didn't know who he was at the time. I offered to give him my trailer hitch to get the boat home, because I was prepared to win that boat. I felt it in my bones. I was taking that boat home, but Mr. Neil won the boat.
Yeah, I tell you what, that seems like a lifetime ago, and it was 2014. But that was a really cool deal, and FLW, for those that, gosh, people are listening now and they're like, who is FLW? But
right.
But FLW, man, gosh, what a tremendous organization and what tremendous people, and Lake Murray hosted the 2014 Forest Wood Cup, and Anthony Gagliardi won it.
Our boy.
And won it on his home water in August. Ranger was a big sponsor and a big part of FLW and Forest Wood, and they would give away a fully loaded Ranger bass boat at the Cup every year, and I put my name in the hat just like everybody else did. And wouldn't you know it, and they drew my name out, and son of a gun, I won the bass boat.
Man. And
here's the thing, like when people are like, oh my gosh, you won a bass boat, it's, you don't get anything for free, and people don't understand that.
Aww.
There's nothing free in this world, and so we knew that, and we held on to the boat for a little while, and somebody made us a really good offer on it, and so we sold it. And just to be quite frank about it, where I was at the time, professionally, I couldn't have afforded to keep the boat. So it was, we made the decision to sell it. We got a really good offer on it. And then the tax bill came later that year. And
oh, wow.
We still had the taxes, still had to pay the taxes on it and things like that. So it all worked out. If it happened today, we wouldn't have to sell the boat. Lord willing,
we could go and enjoy it a lot more.
We could go and enjoy it. That's right. But it was a cool experience, and it's something that's always fun to sit around and talk about. But yeah, so that was 2014 Forest Wood Cup. I was the sales manager at Visit Anderson, and I was just getting my feet wet in this fishing business. So that was a really cool experience, and a really cool way to get jump started into an industry and a world that's kind of been. It's become really special to me, and it's become a very important piece to what we do in Anderson County.
And oddly enough, I was actually just getting my feet wet with social media side of things in 2014, because I started my page probably, I think it was April of 2013. So I was about almost a year and a half into that. Had actually had some talks with some of the people there about, running some of their social media accounts, because nobody did social media back then. No, it was not a social media in 2014 is not what it is today.
No, and I actually told somebody this earlier today. I told them we were getting together to record, and they were asking me a little bit about you, and I said, the thing about him, I said, Sandon, to his credit, when you look back, you were ahead of your time.
I was way ahead of my time. Way ahead of my time.
Because you were doing things, you were trying to do things 10 years ago that people are doing today, and that's something that always kind of stuck out to me about you. And I mean, you've always worked hard, and you're very passionate about what you're doing, and to think back 10 years ago, to see what you were doing 10 years ago, it's what people are doing today, and it's a credit to you and to what you're doing as well. So I expect nothing less than greatness out of this podcast. I know you'll do a great job with it.
Well, I certainly do appreciate that. I mean, there's a lot coming from you. I will say, though, that doing that for so long and then not getting where people are getting today with how social media does, it really burnt me out. And that was why I really had to take a step back for a little bit. And of course, life happens. You've got unforeseen things that happen to you, and it's just, and sometimes it just seems to just pile on. And that's one of the reasons why I had to just take a step back from it, because I wasn't getting where I wanted. I was going places, I just wasn't getting to the right places, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely. And two, a couple of things, life is, I use this example all the time. Life is about, 20% what happens to you and 80% how you respond to it. I just sent, and forgive me for name dropping a little bit, but Easton Fothergill, is a kid that's on the Elite Series this year, and he was, we're not like a year and a half ago, he was, had an emergency brain surgery following the college bracket. You don't know his story.
I do not.
So Easton Fothergill is from Minnesota. He came down, he fished at Montevallo, and he's a tremendous angler and really developed his craft while at Montevallo. And he and his teammate, Nick Dumpke, who Nick does some work with Wired to Fish now, and he's getting his master's at Montevallo. Two great young men, and two young men I've gotten to know really, really well over the last few years. But Cliff Notes version of the story was Easton had, he and Nick were the team of the year at Bass a couple years ago for the college series. So they automatically punched their ticket to the bracket and then fished the national championship. And then they're going to the bracket. And maybe they didn't punch their ticket, maybe they qualified. But anyway, they fished the national championship and they were going to the bracket. And he started having headaches. Long story short, he had some kind of abscess on his brain. He had to have emergency brain surgery, and 6 weeks later fished the bracket.
Wow.
Won the bracket, punched his ticket to the Classic as the college champ, which came with years worth of entry fees into the Open. So then he translates that. So he fishes the Classic last year.
I did see him there.
In Tulsa, and then he fishes the Opens last year, wins 2 Opens, wins the points, the Angler of the Year, the Opens, qualifies for the Elites. So in his first 2 Elite events out the gate, St. John's River and Okeechobee last week, he finished like on the plus side of 90 in both events. He just came out of the gates, just hit the wall. And I texted him yesterday afternoon, maybe, or Saturday morning, something to that effect. And I just told him, I said, here, because in this world, like you're on top of the world one event, and you're in the doghouse the next event, and it can happen that way. But I told him, I said, hey, again, life is 20% what happens to you and 80% how you respond to it, and you've got a full season ahead of you, and how you respond to this start is going to tell a lot about who you are as an angler. I mean, you've already proved that you belong out there,
absolutely,
with everybody. So, and he sent me a nice text back, and I look forward to seeing him at the Classic and all. But, just I tell that to anybody. everybody, we deal with things every day, and just how you respond to it determines not only a lot about you, but it determines kind of what your next steps are going to be.
That's right. Now, so I never knew that about it. I mean, I've seen his name obviously before. I never knew like that's what happened to him. That is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
I cannot even fathom having emergency brain surgery and then fishing 6 weeks later.
Yeah, he sure did. Went home from the national championship, started having headaches. Girlfriend actually got him to go into the ER and get checked out. And yeah, he had some sort of a bacterial infection that caused him like an abscess on his brain. And
good gosh.
And that's, just tough young man. And 6 weeks later, doctors cleared him. He got back in the boat and won the bracket. And the rest is, up to this point, the rest is history, man.
Wow.
Just tremendous testimony and a tremendous, young man. And his best days are ahead of him.
Absolutely. Now, quick thing about me, I work in the operating room. So I work in the medical field. So for somebody to have emergency surgery like that, especially on the brain, and then go fishing 6 weeks later, that is very commendable. So Easton, that's great. So, so Neil, let's talk about you for a little bit. Let's talk about how you got to where you are today. Who is Neil Paul?
Oh gosh. I'll try to give you the same story to tell the same thing I tell everybody else. I'm first of all, I'm very, very blessed and extremely fortunate to be where I am today. And it comes, thank the good Lord. 'Cause obviously he's, somebody once told me the good Lord looks out for children and foolish people and sometimes drunks. And I was one of the foolish people that he's looking out for. And so I'm very grateful. I have two wonderful parents that instilled I think a passion for doing things the right way, working hard, taking pride in your work, and trying to leave things better than you found it. So I think my foundation, I credit a lot of my foundation to my upbringing at home, with my parents, and I'm the oldest of four, so had three younger siblings for my parents to try and get it. We got it. We all raised together, so you learn how to function with others, how to work with others, and how to work when you're not the only one, and things like that. But had an opportunity. From about the time I was 12 or 13 years old, all I wanted to do was coach basketball. Basketball was my passion.
I see you at the Clemson games a lot.
I'm very passionate about the game of basketball, and I was fortunate enough to get to coach in college. I was at Francis Marion University, which is where I went to college, worked in the basketball program there through college, and then stayed on and worked as an assistant afterwards. And the 05-06 season, we got fired. We didn't win enough games, and they didn't have, and at the Division II level, you don't have those fancy contracts and buyouts like all the coaches have today. But we got fired. We didn't win enough games, and that was okay. I went to work with Florence County and then the city of Florence, and did kind of the Parks and Rec thing. And then the opportunity come to move to Anderson, would visit Anderson and go to work as the sales manager at Visit Anderson. And I did that from 2010. I moved here and moved to Anderson in 2010. And the director that hired me, we worked together for about 2.5 years, and her husband got a job, and they moved away. And then they hired another director. She and I came to work together for about 2.5 years, and then she left to pursue other opportunities. And Anderson County, so here's where the story, for me, this is where it starts to take shape. Anderson County had opened Green Pond Landing in 2014, December of 14.
It was right before the 15 Classic. I remember that. And
we hosted the 2015 Classic at Green Pond. It was the first event to go out of Green Pond. And I knew, I grew up fishing. My granddad, my dad took me fishing when I was a kid. I fished with my friends. I grew up in Berkeley County, down in Moncks Corner.
Oh, wow.
Grew up near Lake Moultrie. And so I understood in the back of my mind, I understood how important a lake could be for a community. And not that I fully understood it, but I understood having grown up in a small community with a lake. And then I tell people I knew just enough fishing to be dangerous, right? The competitive fishing bug never bit. Like, I've never had this burning desire to go fish competitively, but I've always loved fishing. And we started working on the 2015 Classic in April of 2013.
I can imagine that.
And so we started meeting with officials from Bass, meeting with the officials from Greenville, starting to put this puzzle together. And all of a sudden I realized there's this whole world out there of fishing. Like, there's this whole world of fishing. It doesn't even involve getting your line wet, right? Mm-hmm. And it was the whole industry side. It was the whole business side. It was the whole, here's an organization that puts on tournaments all over the country, and here's the back side, here's the curtain pulled back so you kind of see how it works. And all of a sudden there was this world that I knew nothing about, and I became like addicted to it. Like, it was something that, like, I just, every day I wanted to know more. And so throughout that process, every time I would meet somebody, I was really working extra hard to build relationships and forge relationships and really ask a lot of questions. I've always been one of these people that, like, if I don't know something, I'm going to ask and find out. And so I was like a sponge and just sucked it up. And so we host the Classic in 15, and then, like, the end of April, that was in February, the end of April, the director I was working for left to do something else, and Anderson County sort of said, hey, if, you know, treat it like it, I made it like I wanted that job at that point, because I knew we could be special. And the county, Anderson County, the leadership of the county was kind enough to give me the opportunity. And, you know, it was, hey, stay off the 6 o'clock news, treat it like it's yours. And if you don't screw it up, you'll get a shot to do the job. And
I don't know. I've seen you on the 6 o'clock news a bunch.
Well, I did. I carried the interim tag for about 16 months, and then that interim tag was removed. But, you know, I wouldn't trade that opportunity for anything in this world. You wonder sometimes, like, during 16 months, I was in the office a lot of times by myself, but not having a team of people around me. I had a team of people around me. Don't let me back up a second. I had anything that I wanted at my fingertips. All I had to do was ask for it. The county made sure that we didn't fail. But in doing so, being the guy in the office in the mornings, in the afternoons, in the evenings, on the weekends, it really forced me to roll up my sleeves and go to work and figure it out for myself. A lot of it. And I, you know, had a lot of tremendous friends, a lot of folks, you know, in the tourism industry that helped me along. I'm not I'm not self-made by any stretch of the imagination. I'm the product of a lot of people's help and advice and a lot of prayers. But so I knew during that 16 months, I knew being, you know, so you're the interim tourism director. There's a lot of stuff coming at you. You're still learning on the job. But I knew a couple of things. Like, I knew how to roll up my sleeves and go to work, because that had been instilled in me my entire life. Right. And so I won't brag. I won't self-promote a lot, but you're going to have to get up real early in the morning to outwork me. And and I've always been that way about a lot of things. And so, you know,
I will say I've been to a couple BFLs, and I've seen you out there rolling with the golf carts.
Well, and here's the thing. Again, something else my dad instilled in me. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so
that's good. I like that.
That's something that has just been instilled in me my entire life. And so that was, you know, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then just the idea of rolling up your sleeves and going to work every day, those are things that I just sort of hang my hat on. And, you know, the county, you know, I knew the county when I got the opportunity to be the interim director at Visit Anderson. I knew the county wanted to make a splash with Green Pond. You didn't sink money into a facility, design and build what they've built to let it sit there, right? And so and then I tell people I knew just enough fishing to be dangerous. So we sank our time and our efforts and our resources into bringing in tournaments. That's how we were going to grow the tourism product in Anderson. And here we are 10 years later, and the economic impact to the upstate of South Carolina from that facility and lake is over $100 million. And that's 3 classics and
that's incredible.
A whole lot of tournaments and people from all over the world that have come to fish there that, quite honestly, probably wouldn't have made it there to fish had we not had a green pond. So I'm always grateful. I'll always be grateful to the folks that come before me that kind of paved the way. I'm always going to be grateful to Anderson County for the opportunity to Visit Anderson, to lead that organization and really kind of serve as the face of fishing for our community. I constantly remind people, like, I get far more credit than I deserve at Green Pond, but by the same token, I probably get far more criticism than I deserve. But that comes with the territory. It's like, you can't be gun shy and serve in the Army, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's, I've enjoyed it. We've had opportunities to go other places, but no places like here. And so that's very special to me.
Well, I, for one, know that if I ever need anything as far as like the fishing world is concerned, I know I can just call you, and you're either gonna know what to do, know what to say, or know who to talk to. And I think that is really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, it goes back to the whole care thing. You do care, and you want to. And I have a real passion for people. Excuse me, and helping people. And I just, again, it's an industry that I've become a sponge to, and I feel like, by just being me, you hear people all the time, don't be somebody you're not, just be yourself. And that's what I've done. I try to be myself, and who I am at the core of it is I'm just somebody that, like, I love it. I'm as passionate about it as the next person, but I also want to help people. And that's very important to me.
That's good. So when talking about being a sponge, I've noticed that you've been doing a lot of marshaling with the Bassmasters. Tell me some of that. What is that like? How do you go about doing that?
Well, so, to be honest with you, for the longest time, like, I thought you'd probably have to get in line and have to wait for the opportunity to do it. And I don't know, it's probably, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I'm watching live one weekend, and they're talking about, somebody, it's probably on Saturday, and they're talking about somebody that, had been in contention the first 2 days that didn't have a camera in the boat on day 3, but they didn't have a marshal either. So we were going to have to wait until weigh-in to figure out what they were bringing to the stage. And I'm like, you mean there's not like a waiting list for these things?
Right.
And so I started talking to folks at Bass, and they were kind enough to bring me up to speed on the process and what it was like. And I'm like, well, I want to do this at some point. So 2019, I marshaled, 2019, I marshaled my first event. It was at Lake Lanier. I'm trying, Paul Mueller won the event. But I marshaled 3 days.
Love old Paul.
I marshaled 3 days of the event. I drew out, I think, day 1. I rode with Chris Johnston.
Wow.
That was my first experience right out of the boat. Chris Johnston, I think day 2 I rode with Jay Yellis, a former classic champion and a bass fishing Hall of Famer. And then on day 3 I rode with Todd Alton, and Todd was throwing a little crankbait, a little red crankbait, and flipping a jig around docks, and worked his way into a top, I think a top 10 or 12 for that event. But and so then the bug bit. So I'm like, this is a lot of fun. So I've done more events. I will tell you, I've not done near as many events as I would like. To be quite honest with you, I'd go out there and run the whole season with them if I could.
Oh, absolutely.
But this thing called work gets in the way, and it's okay. Like and my life's changed a little bit too. My wife and I spend a lot of time together, but then also we have a 3.5-year-old granddaughter, and she takes precedent over going to Marshall. And,
absolutely.
And I, enjoy,
as she should.
Yes. And so, so it's a good time. Like I went, I think I did 2 events last year. I did Murray and Smith Lake. And then this year I'm on the books for the one in North Carolina, Albemarle Sound or whatever it is, up there in Eastern North Carolina, and then I've got.
I'd never even heard of that place until they put it on the schedule.
And then I'm gonna try to figure out one more. I just hadn't figured it out yet, but it's a lot of fun. Here's what I'll tell people. You know, once upon a time, the co-angler program, like if you wanted to develop your craft and get better, you would, you know, everybody said, you know, you got to get it, you know, sign up as a co-angler, get an event, and you learn from the back of the boat. And listen, you can, and that's a tremendous program, and it's a tremendous way to learn. But the dynamic has shifted with the growth of youth fishing, high school and college fishing. The co-angler has sort of, and the development and growth of forward facing sonar has sort of shoved the co-angler to the back burner, right?
It literally has.
And so now what you've got is it's more team oriented, right? So maybe now the co-angler program's not the way to go if you want to improve. I still say people are missing the boat on the Marshall program in that it's $100. You go sit in the boat with a pro and you spend a day with him in his boat. Now, he's competing, so it's not a guide trip and you're not fishing. But I tell people you will learn by not being able to stand up and fish and sit in that seat and watch him work.
You're watching everything. You are watching literally every single movement that he does. And you can sit there and ask him, like, why did you do that? And he'll straight up tell you.
I've done this now. But I've done this now, since 19. I've done at least one event every year since 19. Most of the time it's 2 and 3 events.
Right.
But I've not had an experience. Now, I've had experience where guys didn't catch fish, but I've not had an experience yet where a guy would not, like, offer up something if you asked for some help.
Right.
And if you show that you're interested in what they're doing and you're genuine about it, you know, I was in the boat with Patrick Walters.
That's a good dude.
At Pickwick one year, and he said, we get out there to the water, and he's like, so really now why are you doing this? I'm like, because I'm a fish head just like you are. And he said, so you're not over here riding around with us trying to book tournaments. And I'm like, how many tournaments have you booked for bass? None. I'm like, I'm out here. This is my point. That this is my time to learn. And I've learned a lot out there. I've seen a lot of tricks, and I've seen some things that you don't normally get sitting on dry land. So it's been a really cool experience. Fortunately I've not had any bad experiences. I've had a couple that I don't wish to go back and repeat.
Right.
But I've had the opportunity to go out in the boat with some really, really cool guys, and it's been a great little deal, and I look forward to continuing to do it.
That's awesome. And I will bring this up. The 22 Classic, I remember getting that phone call like, hey, I need a guy. And I'm like, I'll be your guy. And so he gets me out there. And so I went for the first the last practice day.
It was official practice.
It was official practice day. I went with Josh Straightner.
Josh Straisner.
Went out with him and had a phenomenal day. I saw at least 7-8 pounder right upside the dock that he brought out with like a big giant swim bait. He's like, we're just gonna go looking, and he just flips it up beside the dock, and I just looked and I was like, dude, there's a shadow behind that. And he reels it up really quick. He's like, and he drops a pin on his thing. He said, I'll come back to that. And he pulls on away. And then first day I got to fish with KJ Queen or Marshall. I got to be in the boat with KJ Queen. That was his first ever classic. And so that was really cool, just watching his emotions. And I'm just sitting there like this. I'm just like, dude, this is so cool, because my emotions were just as high as his were. And to watch him, pull off and then pull into this pocket and then just go to town. And like he knew, like, he had found these fish. They were not giant by any means, but he lost a giant that day. But I think he put together 4 in the first 30 minutes, 4 12-inchers. And then like one 10-pound striper that he caught. I got it all on video. It was awesome. But he lost a giant. When I tell you, Neil, he lost a giant back in one of the creeks, throwing a crankbait. So I'm sitting in the seat, and he just popped up on the thing, and I was about to go up to the back deck. He makes the first cast right up beside this dock, and it was like a dock and like a bunch of rocks that led out to it, and he throws it right up beside the dock, and he starts reeling. We're just sitting there talking, shooting the breeze. I can't remember what we were talking about, but he just, oh, I'm hung, and then he goes, oh, no, I'm not. He said, move, and I jump up, and this fish just starts jumping. He had it just one hook, and the very back hook in, and when that fish just turned and whipped its tail and just flailed all through the water, it come off. Neil, that fish was about 7 or 8 pounds. It was very incredible to see, and I'm just sitting there going, you can catch him again, man. This is all you. I was trying not to let him get all like spun out, and he was like, just gotta keep fishing. I was like, yeah, dude, there's 30 more in here. Just go.
So couple stories about KJ. So I've been in the boat with him before. I marshaled with him in 2021 at Neely Henry. I drew out with him one day, and so two things. One, you mentioned a second ago about it was cool to sit in the boat and see his emotions. I tell a lot of people,
he went through a lot of emotions in that first 10 minutes, and it was awesome.
I tell people most of what I've learned out in the boat as a marshal, most of what I learned is not tied on the end of the line. Mm-hmm. It's watching the mental side of it and watching these guys, how they work and respond to the mental side of it. So it was interesting that you mentioned that, but I'll give up some goods here for you on the on the inaugural podcast. So
nice.
So KJ, I'm in the boat with KJ, and I'm watching him, and he's throwing a shaky head, and on Neely Henry, he's throwing a shaky head, and I notice every time he changes worms, he's got in the pocket of his jacket, he's got a pack of I'll tell you, they resumed trick worms. Mm-hmm. And he'd go in his pocket and he'd pull his bag out. Well, then I get to looking at this bag. I'm trying to figure out what color trick worms there. What is it about these trick worms? And I see him, and I see something in the bag, and I'm like, and it's dark, and I'm like, has he got dirt in that bag? Like, what has he got in that bag? And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Are there's even trick worms? Has he got live bait in a Zoom bag? And I'm trying to figure this out. So I'm like, I become really like locked in on this pocket in this bag. And so finally he goes through another trick worm or whatever, and he puts that bag pulls that bag out of his pocket, and he goes, I need some more. And so I asked him, I said, dude, what are you doing? I said, is that dirt in the bag? And he started laughing, and he goes, no. He goes, let me show you. He said, well, let me tell you. He said, I'm going to show you, but let me tell you a story. He goes, my dad and I were out fishing one night at, I'm going to say Norman because they're from up that way.
Right.
But it may not have been Norman. But he and his dad were out fishing one evening. And he said, we're both on the front of the boat throwing a shaky head. And he said, Dad's out catching me 3-1. And he won't say a word. Like he's thrashing me. And he said, I finally like, what are you doing that I'm not doing? Like, we're throwing the same bait, what are you doing that I'm not?
We're doing all the stuff.
Yeah. And so his dad reached in his pocket. He pulled out this bag of trick worms, and he handed them to him. And same thing, looked like it was full of dirt. But it wasn't dirt. It was coffee.
Oh, I was about to say it's probably coffee.
And so what and listen, there may be somebody listening to this podcast and think, Neil, you're just a dodo. Like, we've been doing that for years. I know you've been doing it for years. Right.
Heck, I never thought to do it like that.
And like to his point, he said my dad told, he said it was something my dad was playing with. he said, Strike King, when they started making the coffee infused baits, he said those were really, really good, and they were really popular at the time. But because of supply and demand, they're not infused today like they were when they first started making them.
That's the first thing I was thinking of.
And so he sits down, he opens up one of his boxes on the boat, and he pulls out this giant bag of, it was French vanilla, a Dunkin' Donuts coffee, big orange bag. I'm telling you, dude, it was this big. And he pulls it out, and he scoops more coffee into another bag of worms, gets up and keeps fishing. But that little stuff like that is stuff that you pick up out there that you would not have known.
Right, yeah.
Had you not been in the boat. Now, and because And think about Hartwell. Relate that to where we're at. Hang on.
He's got a sneeze coming. Here he goes. And he delivers.
Sorry about that. Exactly what you want when you're recording live, right?
That's right.
But think about going to Hartwell and throwing a shaky head. How many shaky heads? And I'm just using shaky head as an example, but how many shaky heads do those bass see over there?
A lot.
And at that point, what makes, and this was KJ's point, like what makes your shaky head different than the others? And so just being willing to try something a little different may be the difference between a big bite, a small bite, or no bite at all. So that was just something that was kind of cool. You mentioned KJ, and that's a cool little Marshall story that sometimes I'll share.
That's really folks. Neat.
But then, so to that point, KJ's got a half brother that fishes down at Montevallo.
Okay.
And I know some kids that fish at Montevallo, and Queen Tackle will send them stuff throughout the year. Mm-hmm. They'll get care packages down there at Montevallo because they sponsored a fishing team.
Right.
And I've had one of those kids tell me, I shared that story with him, and he said, oh, yeah. He said, when they send us a care package, we'll open up a package, and there'll be a bag of jigs or a bag of baits, and they're full of coffee. We got to dig them out of the coffee in order to divide them up and use them. So it's just kind of a pretty cool little deal there.
That's awesome. So KJ was probably one of the coolest dudes I ever met. He was so awesome. Like just riding around and talking to him. We struck up a good little friendship after that. So my day 2 though was probably the wildest day I've ever had because I got to ride with Matt Robertson.
Yeah, you did.
And let me just tell you, it started off like just as you would think it was going to start off. So you stand at the tent and you get your, hey, Sandon, you're going to go with Matt Robertson. And everybody just turned at me and like, you lucky dog. Because everybody wanted to fish with it. It was Matt, Brandon, and there was a few others like Christy and everybody. That's who people wanted to ride with. Well, I got Drew out with Matt. And I walked up to his boat and he goes, you my marshal? I said, yes, sir. He goes, all right. He said, throw your in the boat, hold it on. I was like, okay, cool. He said, you good with back? He said, can you back a boat? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, I don't want you to back a boat. He said, can you drive a boat? I said, yes, sir. He said, okay, you're driving the boat. Neil, this story right here is probably the worst story I have. And I feel like such an idiot after this happened. Okay. Matt, I get in the driver's seat. Matt backs me in the lake and I go crank the boat. I can't get it to crank. I don't know anything about the controls on his boat because I think he had a brand new Triton. I don't know anything of the controls on the boat. I don't know where anything is. All I know is he just told me to turn it on and just park it up against the dock. I said, yes, sir. So I go to crank it. Oh, I can't get it to go. And I'm sitting there and it just keeps going back. Now, you obviously know on the Classic or any kind of event like that, there's a lot of people out there. So now I've got eyes looking at me, and I'm talking, there's probably at least 300 people out there, and they're all watching me. And you feel that big, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, you get so nervous in that moment, the whole 9 yards. And I'm sitting there, and I can't get this boat to crank. And I hear, whoa, 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 whoa. And here comes Drew Cook running. And he runs and he jumps on the boat and he goes, you can't get it started? I said, no. He said, did you pull the kill switch? I was like, I didn't pull the kill switch. He's like, well, and he fumbles around and he finds that Matt had pulled the kill switch when he took the boat out. He didn't tell me that. So the boat was actually backing into Drew's boat that was parked on the dock. And so Drew got in, hit it, and crunk it right up, and I was able to pull it back around. And Matt comes a little later. He's got his biscuit bag or whatever from breakfast, and he goes, I heard you had a interesting encounter. I was like, yeah, you didn't tell me that the kill switch was broke. He goes, oh, well. But that day was just, that was a very fun day. I really enjoyed that. That was so much fun. I tell you, though, I breathed a big sigh of relief after he walked down the dock, though, because I was like, I got all this attention on me already. I got people, hey, get the boat out of the way. I was like, I can't. But that was cool. I will say we did have a small little altercation that day too. I don't know if you know about this. So basically, whenever, you know, they fish 1 through 55 and then they flip the field on the second day. So Matt went out before the leaders, and one of the leaders was Christy. What ended up happening was Matt pulls into his pocket. And so he's sitting at the mouth of this pocket, and he's, you know, scoping. He's got fish, you know, up and around. And he's just sitting there, and all of a sudden, he's probably there for a good 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, you just hear this roar of boats coming. And so Matt's going, well, I wonder who that is. He says, probably one of the leaders got a camera in the boat or whatever. So we're sitting there, and Christy comes around, and he's up against literally up on the bank. And he's, you know, I look over, I'm like, oh, it's Christy. He goes, I wonder what he wants. And Christy asked him, he's like, hey, he said, where are you? He said, well, first off, where are you fishing at? He said, I'm just right here. And he points to like this second dock. He said, that's as far as I'm going, right in here. And Christy goes, okay. He said, can I go to the third dock and go down? And me and him both said this later on, that we thought that maybe he meant he was just going to fish the docks and come out. Christy goes to the third dock, jumps up on the trolling motor, turns around, starts live scoping himself.
Back at you.
Back in front of Matt, and Matt got mad. You can see, and there again, the emotions and how they take care of everything. He didn't say nothing right then and there, because he didn't want to. He's like, I'll have to talk to him later. And I was like, I think you need to. But it wasn't, I think it was just a misunderstanding per se, because him and I both sat there and talked about it a little later on, because he was trying to skip a chatterbait underneath the floating dock. And it was like a little groove. It was two of the pods that were sitting side by side in a little groove about this much. He wind up, he'd throw it. He hit the left side, he reeled back up, he hit the right side, and then he finally just wham, and 30 foot back into the dock. He's like, finally. He's like, God, I'm just so mad. And I'm like, I said, you're still thinking about the Christie situation? He said, yeah. He said, he said, what was he thinking? I was like, I don't know. He said, well, I'm going to talk to him. He said, I ain't going to let it bother me. I'm going to talk to him later. So obviously nothing ever come of that, but I thought that was really cool to actually like see that happen. I was like, that's wild. That just how it happened like that. Of course, Matt I think he caught 2 or 3 keepers right there. And then he ended up finishing out his limit, doing something totally different later on. So, I did get to see Christy catch about a 25-pound catfish though. I got that on camera. I filmed that, and that was pretty cool. And Matt, as soon as Christy hooked up to it, Matt says, you might want to get that on camera, because I think the live camera is going to get it too. But he said, that'd be kind of cool to get your angle. So I did manage to get that on there.
Yeah. So it's, the whole Marshall deal, it's a lot of fun, and you get a totally different perspective, and obviously getting to do it in the Classic is a big deal. And I've not been able to do it on a Classic day yet. I've been able to go out and ride on official day, official practice day at the Classic. I've done that the last couple of years in Knoxville, and then last year at Tulsa. So it's really cool, go out. And for us, it's kind of cool because, like, the last couple of years, Brandon Cobb's made he's been the Classic. And so we work with Brandon through Visit Anderson. So it's a cool way to get out on the water with him and spend a day and get some content that we can use throughout the event, and also as you get into this spring months and everything. So, anyway, so that's, so it's a good time. Like I said, I would highly recommend the experience to anybody.
I would as well. It was probably the most fun I've ever had, like without a fishing rod in my hand.
Yeah.
But so I guess we're rounding this whole first podcast up. We'll get into this last couple topics here. So, what do you think about the current state of the fishing world? What do you think about it with all the forward-facing sonar and all the DQs and everything? What do you think about what's going on right now?
Well, so there's a lot of different answers there. So I think the industry, the business as a whole, and again, I'd tell you I've got one foot in the pool, given because, there's so much more to what I do in travel and tourism that's just that's not fishing related. But, just from as a fan, as somebody that's involved, as somebody that is, has kind of a seat at the table. Some days I think it's the kids' table probably, but that's okay. The industry, there are more, here's the thing, there are more eyes on the industry now than there probably ever have been.
I agree. Totally agree.
With the growth or the explosion, if you want to call it, of youth fishing, with the juniors, the high schoolers. I mean, we hosted 2 summers ago. We hosted the high school national championship with bass. We had 481 boats.
That is incredible
on the lake, and so it's with that explosion, the explosion of college fishing, the growth and development across the board. You got a lot of eyes on the sport. You've got a lot of eyes on the industry. You've got a lot of people playing in the pool now. And I think sometimes when that happens, it just generally creates more awareness. And what it does is now you've got more eyes on the sport than you've ever had, but you've also got more opinions on the sport than you've had. And so I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. I don't think it's as great as people make it out to be. It's like, I got a buddy that talks about, there's two sides to every situation. It's like a quarter. And if you pick up that quarter, you got two sides, but you've also got that little thin ridge line around the quarter. And I think the truth of the industry is probably somewhere on that ridge line on the quarter. It's not as bad and it's not as great as people make it out to be. There's still some ways that we can make it better, but I also don't think that it's the drama-filled dumpster fire that some people make it out to be as well. And I think, again, 20% what happens to you, 80% how you respond to it. And I think that's really where we're at. It's a great industry to be involved in. It's a great industry with a lot of great people. I tell people this a lot of times. Like I have relationships and friendships in the fishing industry that are 2, 3, 4, and 5 years old, and I oftentimes have to remind myself that we didn't all grow up together. They're just that tight and they're just that close. So, again, it's sometimes it's a good thing. We've got more eyes and ears on the industry now and on the sport. Let's continue to work and hold hands to make it better.
That's right. I will say, though, that it kind of gets a little old, getting on Facebook or getting on one of those pages or whatever, and they always like, oh, they need to ban the forward-facing sonar, or, oh, I love the forward-facing sonar. And I will say that I haven't had any experience with it. Well, I take it back. I've had 2 experiences with it. One as a co-angler and then one with Matt Robertson when he was doing it. But being the co-angler in that situation, it was a little difficult, but I adjusted to it because my boater in the BFL was looking for just targeting specific fish. He was trying to find, there was bait pods running through, and he was targeting the fish that were chasing the bait pods because they from what he practiced on, he said those were the bigger fish. So with him doing that, I'm throwing the opposite direction because if they're coming this way and he's throwing at them as they're right there, they're going to end over here. So that's where I want to focus my cast, and I think that was what I kind of adapted to. But it just, it's I feel like the forward-facing sonar deal is just not as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. It's just another tool in the fisherman's handbag to utilize. Some can use it, some can't.
You're right. It is, and it's our sport taking another step, and it's I think there's some truth to the fact that we're so early into this. We don't know the lasting effects that it has, but also look. My 3.5-year-old granddaughter sometimes can navigate. Well, she navigates my wife's phone better than she does.
Right.
And so it's technology, and technology is it's not going away. And so it's one of those. It's like when I coached basketball in college, one of my buddies that coached, he had a sign up in his office about recruiting, and he said, "Recruiting's like shaving. If you don't do it every day, you'll look like a bum." And I would just, I thought about that as I'm looking across at you and your
my little scraggle beard.
Scraggle beard, yeah. But no, to the point is, forward facing sonar, it's kind of the same thing. It's a technology in the sport, and it's a technology. Look, people are going to use it different ways.
Absolutely.
Use it to the way that it works for you. Don't try to, again, be yourself. Don't be somebody you're not. Right. And so that's what I would tell, and obviously you're talking to a guy that doesn't tournament fish, and
it's been a hot minute since I tournament fished too.
But it's one of those deals where, I mean, make it work for you. If it's not, if you need it to be your strength, then you need to spend every day on the water with it so that you can learn it and it can be your strength. If it's something you want to go to in a pinch, then understand and familiarize yourself with it to where you can go to it in a pinch.
At least
that's what I would say.
At least figure out the ins and outs of how it works and the basics of it.
But oftentimes, as human beings, we get caught up in when we don't understand something, we want to throw shade at it, and I don't think we need to throw shade at it because it's here and it's not going away.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
And it's been fun to watch. Honestly, I'll say this, it's been fun to watch the first two elite events because you've seen guys use it and do well. You've seen guys not rely on it and do well.
Just rolling down the bank.
And then also, I'll give credit to Major League Fishing with their concept of allowing it for one period. And now you watch the strategy of it. I've watched more Major League Fishing in their first two events than I have in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. And it's for that reason. It's put some you'd watch guys now, again, you're watching the mental side of it, and that's something that's very intriguing to me.
I will say that I've watched the first two events too, and I was like, wow, this is better. This is good. I like this. Now, I don't know if per se bass would do something similar. I don't know if they can.
It'll be real difficult without having a period.
Yeah.
I think, and here's the thing, I don't think that bass, I don't think they need to.
I don't think they need to either.
You look at the first two events, and the first two events have not been won by all the scopers. I mean, those guys, there's a time and a place for it and it works, and there's a time and a place not for it and it works. So, I think let's let it play out some more before we start making final judgments.
I fully agree. So, again, we'll shift gears a little bit as we're winding this thing down. What is your opinion on this year's Classic? Who do you think is going to be the champion when it's all said and done?
I'm going to give you two names.
Okay.
And I thought about this earlier today. And I'll be honest with you, it has nothing to do with the fact that he's coming off a win. But my trendy pick is going to be Brandon Polnick.
Okay.
He is a tremendous, and I said this after he won yesterday, he's a tremendous angler. He's an even better person.
Absolutely.
As you get to know him. But he's my pick to win the Classic. I think that he has experience there, having fished the 21 Classic there and he had some success. I forget where he finished, but he did have some success there. But he can throw the jerk bait.
Absolutely.
He can handle the pre-spawn stuff. He can handle some fish that may be in post-spawn. At that point, like, he can do the electronics thing. Mm-hmm. He can turn the electronics off and not do the electronics.
He can go straight to a bed if he needed to.
And he's as close to a total package. And there's others out there too, but he's as close to the total package as you can get right now. And he's won the Bass Nation. He's won at the Opens level. He's won at the elite level. And he's got 2 AOIs. He did one trophy that he doesn't have on his shelf as a Classic, and it's coming at some point. But he would be my pick. He'd be my pick, my trendy pick to win this year's Classic. And then if you want me to go with an off the radar pick, my off the radar pick is John Garrett.
John Garrett, okay.
John Garrett. I mean, you can throw a crankbait. He throws a crankbait extremely well, and you can catch bass this time of year in the state of Texas on a crankbait. And so he can do that, but he can also do the electronics thing. But then just like the other day, you saw him slow down at the St. Johns River, pull out a Carolina rig and catch fish that way. He loaded himself up with a second place. What do you want to? What he finished second or third, right behind Lowen?
Yes, it was second, and I think he was on.
And he had 4 fish.
The margin of victory, I think, was 6 ounces between first, second, and third.
It was something like that.
Yeah.
And so John Garrett's a guy that I've gotten to know since he was the college champ and going through the opens, and he's a guy that to me, he's an old soul. Now, he may sit in here and argue this with us, but to me, he's an old soul in a kid's body, in a younger guy's body. But he just, I like the way he fishes. I like watching him fish. Anytime he's on live with a live camera, I always enjoy watching him. I love the way he fishes and love to watch him work. And he's not a trendy pick, in my opinion, but he's a guy that could go out there and put 3 days together and win it as well. So those are my 2 picks. You got a trendy pick and you got a not so trendy pick.
So I guess I'll do the same. My trendy pick is going to be somebody that is pretty much his home lake. I'm going to go with Chris Zaldane. I think that's going to be my trendy pick because I think he's going to be the odds-on favorite. And I think that's what at least that's what I've been seeing on the interwebs is he's been the odds-on favorite.
He's a good. I like Chris a lot. He's a good dude, and he didn't get up. His season's not gotten off to a great start. Hopefully, he can get home and hit the reset button and sleep in his own bed a few nights and just kind of get to put the pieces back together. But I'd love to see him have a great classic for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So my kind of off the wall, but not really off that wall too much. I'm gonna have to either go. I have to go to 2 local boys. I got to go Cobb or Airy.
So Cobb's not fishing the classic.
Oh, he's not.
No. So last year,
that I feel like a rookie now. I feel so bad.
Yes. Okay. So So Brandon, bless his heart. So he had 2 years ago. He finished second in the AOI to Kyle Welcher, and then followed it up last year. He had, quite frankly, his. And these are his words, not mine, but the worst year of his professional career, and missed the classic. So and Matt Airy, it would be a solid pick. Matt Airy, had to fish on to win the classic in 21 at Ray Roberts, and it came off. And
I was there for that weigh-in. That was an incredible weigh-in. And watch Hank win.
Yeah, and Matt's a good dude. I like Matt a lot, and if he were to win that classic, I'd probably wouldn't be too many people more happier for him and his family than I would be.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, that 21 classic has one of my wildest travel stories ever. So we drove out to Fort Worth on Monday. We're there all week. Well, they moved it back from March to June because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Well, they happened to schedule it on the week where I had a BFL on Clarks Hill that Saturday. I drove all the way out to Fort Worth. We were there all week with my family. And then on Friday, we went into Dallas. We went by Gas Monkey Garage, got Richard Rollins to sign a $100 bill. It was really cool. And then we went and ate at his bar and grill. Then I got on my first ever plane ride and flew all the way back to Greenville, drove home, then drove all the way down to Clarks Hill to fish the BFL that Saturday. And as soon as I got done weighing in, I got right back in the car, drove all the way back to Greenville, and went all the way back to Dallas. And then was there to watch the final day. And as soon as they got done weighing in and Hank won, I got back in the car and drove 14 and a half hours back home.
Wow.
And so I did all of that to weigh in 1 fish in the BFL.
Yeah, wow. I don't know. It
was tough, man. It was a tough day.
I was going to say, I don't know that I've got much to say to that. Wow.
It was tough.
You'd have been better off to stay in Texas.
I literally thought the same thing. I was like, but it's kind of it's not really a once in a lifetime opportunity, but it was like a once in a decade kind of opportunity because I wouldn't have done that any other time. Because I was sitting pretty decent in points. All I needed to do was just go and catch a fish to make the regional. So I was like, I have to do it. And so my thought process was, if I fit, because I caught fish in the first 2 events or first 3 events, and then I was like, if I catch one there, or if I don't catch one in the next one, then I won't do it. So I ended up catching like 4 or 5, 4. I caught 4 in the next one. I was like, I got to fish now. So went ahead and just booked the plane ticket right there in the parking lot before I even got home. So that's my wildest travel story that involves fishing now.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
I got called an idiot the whole 9 yards. A matter of fact, one of my buddies, he called me, and because he was in Houston as well, because he knew I was there for the Friday, and because he saw me around Dallas or whatever. So he calls me. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "You want to go get dinner?" And I'm like, "Actually, I'm in Greenville." And he goes, "Wasn't you just in Dallas this morning?" I said, "Yeah, I got on a plane, went back. I'm fishing Clarks Hill tomorrow." And he goes, "What? Are you for real right now? Are you seriously fishing Clarks Hill tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah." And then so we can do dinner Saturday night because my plane will be back about 10 o'clock if you want to do like a In-N-Out dinner. And that's what we ended up doing, was In-N-Out.
Yeah.
So here's an opinion. I know you got a Whataburger coming to Anderson. Actually, it's already there now. Yeah. In-N-Out or Whataburger?
Whataburger for sure.
I like Whataburger.
I do, and yeah, Whataburger. Sure. Well, I have an opinion on Whataburger. I'll say this, and I'm gonna have to be careful when I say this, but I've often said Whataburger is in theory, Whataburger is the Chick-fil-A of hamburgers. Okay. So like we did from a service standpoint, and when I said that, I had always had great experiences. Our Whataburger in Anderson's gotten off to a slow start.
Okay.
I've enjoyed it. I go there, but I can't, we got some work to do.
That's fine.
We got some work to do.
Hey, you can always go up.
That's right.
Never go down.
Like
you can always go up.
Like this podcast, it's got no place to go but up.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I am not a professional by any means, but I think we've done a pretty solid job. We've been
we have.
We've been doing this for an hour now, so we've been doing a good job.
And listen, there's so much more we could talk about. I just mean from a guest standpoint, like you got no place to go but up.
Oh man, I don't know. I think I could retire with one though. I love you, Neil. You're really good.
I appreciate you too. We've had a good time, and we're going to continue to have a great time. And I appreciate all your support that you've given us.
Absolutely. I would not know what to do if it was anybody else in your position, if that makes any sense at all. If it was anybody else that was doing what you did, I would not know how to react, because I would not know how to, I just don't know how I would function, because I've grown to like you so much. If that but here's the deal. I'm very, again, and kind of we're back where we started. I'm very blessed to be in that seat. I'm very blessed to have that opportunity. The county's been really good to me to take care of me and give me the resources give us the resources rather that we need to be able to do it. We've continued the development of Green Pond. We've continued to be able to go out and market the facility in the lake, and to host tournaments and large tournaments and championship type events, and to keep it on the map. We've been able to do that. And so I'm fortunate, that I get to be the guy that does it. And, from that standpoint, from the promotional marketing standpoint, I'm grateful for the opportunity to sit in that seat and get to do what I do. But it's not me by any stretch. It's a team full of people. We have a great staff in our office. Whitney Ellis, Elizabeth Young, they do a tremendous job. And the folks at Anderson County Parks, Matt and Sharon and Luke, there's a handful of people. We kind of joke. We have kind of a joke amongst our group that there's pigs and there's chickens, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're a pig, you know it, and if you're a chicken, maybe sometimes you don't know it. But we often say, but the difference is, it's like the chicken and the pig and a bacon and egg breakfast, mm-hmm. right? The chicken's involved, but the pig's committed. Oh, and so that's really good. I like that.
So we have a group that when it's time to be there at 4:30 in the morning, that core group is always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And typically when we close the gates at night or when we leave and it's the end of a tournament day, that same core group is still there. And so I'm grateful to be able to go to work with those folks every day, and not only call them coworkers, but they're friends. They're friends first, because I can tell you what, if they drain the water out of the lake tomorrow and boarded up the windows at Visit Anderson, we'd still show up out there at that boat ramp and sit just to talk about how fortunate we were and to enjoy some time together. So that's really special for what we have, and I think it's gone a long way in creating the culture that we've created out there as well.
That's really good. So, closing thoughts. If you could give somebody on the other side of this camera right now any kind of advice, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I think just from that standpoint, I go back to some of just my core values. Treat people the way you want to be treated, right? Just the golden rule. Treat people the way you would want to be treated. Always remember to, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And, life is 20% what happens to you, 80% how you respond to it. I keep a calendar on my desk, and I've got a handful of quotes. In fact, by flipping over to March over the weekend, I was transferring my quotes from February to March. I write that seriously. I write them every month when I move the calendar, but just a couple of them.
And you added one today right here in the front room.
Yeah, that's right. But it's just it's simple things. Don't let the hard days win. Right? Everybody, we all have trials and tribulations, and we all have hard days, but don't let volition. It's I heard a guy speak one time. It was Dan Rooney, Folds of Honor, the fighter pilot that's got his PGA card, and he started the Folds of Honor Foundation. And he said, the most powerful word in our language is volition. It's the power to choose. And every day you can choose to have a great day, or you can choose to have a bad day. And every day you wake up, you get to make that choice. So, that's something that's very important to me. I don't always get it right. I'm thankful to the good Lord that we get another day to try and get it right. But, just choose. You get a choice every day. Choose to. You can choose not to have a bad day. We're always going to have things come at us, and you just be willing to roll up your sleeves and work through it. Don't let the hard days win, right? And another one is if your presence doesn't make an impact, your absence won't make a difference. And just that. It's be in the moment, be in the now, leave it better than you found it, kind of thing. And so those are things that are very important to me. And there's no, I'd like to say that, well, here's a book on how you do it, and this is the way you do it, and here's the playbook for life, or here's the playbook for doing what we do. But there's really not. There's not a playbook. You show up, you go to work, you outwork them, you outwork the people that you're competing against, and you work with the people that you compete with. And that those are just the core values that have been instilled in me, and that I think that is are very important to somebody wanting to be successful, whether you're a youth angler and you want to go to you want to be a good high school angler, or whether you're somebody that works in business, or somebody that just does something else. I think that oftentimes we get caught up in the weeds of which we make things harder than it is sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, it's about having the right attitude, being true to yourself and the people around you, and being willing to line up and go to work.
That's really good. Well, I think that's a really good note to end on. So if you watch this whole thing through, I really appreciate it. This is the first episode of many, many to come. Neil, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on this show. And we're going to definitely have you again.
Absolutely. We actually left some meat on the bone over there. There's some other things.
There's some other things on there
we could cover, but no, seriously, thank you so much, and I'm so proud of you for sticking it out. So many people would have, when they got a couple of no's or had a couple of doors slammed on them, they'd have quit and give up, and you didn't. And I'm really proud of you for that. And you continue to grind away and make a difference. And again, like I said, you were ahead of your time. So now you've caught up a little. It's caught up with you a little bit.
And now I got to play catch up.
Yeah, but no, congratulations, and I look forward to this one. I look forward to watching it grow. And like I said too, I mean, we joke about it, but hey, your trajectory is here now. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in.